Okay, so here we are in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, June 1st, 2019, and we're doing a case study called The Wizard of Oz. It's a leadership viewpoint. There's a case study that's found in a book called Level Up Leadership. And I'm doing this for the orphans in Tanzania, Eastern Africa. My name is Dr. Michael Provitera, and I'm going to be talking to you today about these slides which come from The Wizard of Oz. So we start out by talking about the author, Frank Baum, right? So he was a guy that had a heart condition. He was quite timid, actually. Imagine that, a timid man coming up with a great story. At age 5, he moved to an estate, and he started out in a fortune with crude oil, his family. And like many authors, he never used his first name. Therefore, he liked to use Frank instead of his first name, which started with an L. So he read a lot of fairy tale British writers like Dickens. He was a critic of some fairy tales that were frightening and harrowing. He didn't like them. Horrifying, scary novels he didn't like. But he had a dream of making a different kind of fairy tale. So his parents sent him away to a strict military school. Suffering a heart attack or nervous breakdown, he finally withdrew. And he began to nurture his creative interests. What he did was, his first book was Mother Goose in prose in 1897. His last book before he died was Glinda of Oz. And he died in 1919 in his home in Hollywood, California. Published in September 1900 was The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the movie that we talk about over and over again. The advertising poster looked like this: Scarecrow and the Tin Man. The genius is surrounded by 8 of Frank's early books, 8 of them that he put together. And he also had some original artwork built into this. He actually looked at some ideas of the flying monkeys. So we have Dorothy, we have Toto the dog, and we have the Scarecrow. We also have the Woodsman, which is the Tin Man, and we have the Cowardly Lion. And the Wizard of Oz, the famous Wizard of Oz, and the Witch of the West, that was the evil one, and the Witch of the South. And then we have, in summary, Dorothy lives in Kansas, and her Auntie Em and a dog, Toto. A frightening cyclone appears. They were unable to get away, and the storm didn't get to this storm cellar in time. So, landing on the mysterious field in the Munchkins' land, her flying house from the wind ended up hitting and kicked the witch of the east, which was the evil witch. So a nice witch from the north greeted Dorothy and gave her some silver shoes. The good witch of the north recommended Dorothy follow the yellow brick road to the city of emeralds and asked the Wizard of Oz for help. So Dorothy meets the Scarecrow. Poor guy needed a brain. Anybody have anybody they work with that they feel needs a brain? Hopefully not. The Tin Man. Poor guy needed a heart. Is there anybody that we work with that needs a heart? Hopefully not. We hope that people around us have good hearts, right? Cowardly Lion. Poor guy lacked courage. Many people lack courage, and we want to know that courage is something that's common, and we have to be able to face courage. So the wizard, a fake, a fraud, appeared each time as someone or something different took place. And the wizard was an expert at negotiating. He agrees with each of them, but he tells them to find the broom, and that they must kill the wicked witch of the west. So the wicked witch's attacks failed, and Dorothy, killing the bad witch, and gets the golden cap. After coming back to Emerald City, they discover that the wizard appears to be no one but a fake, a fraud. But he made a promise, and he still agrees to give them what they need. So Oz have to take them into their home and the hot air balloon, and Dorothy and Toto jump out, and they miss the opportunity to go away with it. But the good witch tells her all she has to do is click her shoes, and she can go home. And she does, and she goes home. And all along, she points at these shoes. And Dorothy and Toto return to Kansas to a loving family they miss dearly. So we look at this case, and so a little summary of the case is in the midst of life struggle, Dorothy found herself living in a mediocre life that she once, when it was all over in her dream, was really happy that she got back to. So we look at it from a leadership standpoint. So how did she prepare her leadership? What did she do? How did she start leading? And how did she take on new challenges? How did she start seeking opportunities? How did she know that the Tin Man needed help, and the Lion, and the Scarecrow, and the Wizard himself needed to actually develop his skills of leading? And she even helped him. So how did Dorothy's learning process continue even after her return home? She realized that her life is good at home, and there's no reason to run away. This movie is actually a reason why people should not run away from home. So we look at the questions. Question 2 is decision making. How did she get them to make decisions? How did she get them to look at the payoffs? And how did she get them to follow their influences and motivate them? So question 3 looks at motivating people. So we look at some of the ways that Dorothy was able to motivate each one of them. And she tried to make a connection between each of their performance and rewards, and how to communicate that they were on the right track and they were going to be successful. And that they developed a mindset that includes what's in it for me, for themselves. And they also looked at managing people. There's 3 things that you need to know that the Greek philosophers came up with. One is called ethos. It's an ethical appeal. The second is called logos, which is a logical appeal. And the third one is called pathos. And pathos is another way to appeal through emotional appeal. So we have 3, right? So we have ethos, we have pathos, emotional appeal. Ethos is an ethical appeal. And then we have logos, which is a logical appeal. So we look at question 5, leading people. How did she use situational leadership? Did she tell? Did she sell? Did she participate? She delegated to people what to do. Each situational leadership style was used by Dorothy as her leadership developed over time. And then how did she use power? She had legitimate power. Reward, she told people, come with me and you'll get the heart. Come with me and you'll get the brain. Come with me and you'll get courage, right? So she used coercive power when she had to tell the witch, you're doing bad things and you're hurting people. So she used expert power. She was special knowledge and skills that she had that got people back home. And then she used referent power. People loved to be around her. And finally, in question 6, we look at some leadership and change. So John Carter said, you want to establish a sense of urgency. You want to create a guiding coalition. Develop a strong vision and strategy. Over-communicate the vision and the strategy. Redesign to encourage broad-based action. Generate short-term wins. Consolidate gains in redesigning and using human resources. And then anchor the change in the culture so it sticks. The other thing we look at is a friend of mine, James Clausen, University of Virginia, came up with level 3 leadership. He said, help people get out of their comfort zones, their habits. Be willing to deliver disconfirming data. This may not be the right path for you. Perhaps this is the right path for you. Right? My brother-in-law retired at 55 after putting 25 years into the police force and law enforcement and the FBI, right? So he chose that career. Other people are working other careers. Be willing to deliver this information so people could know what career to choose. Identify and collaborate with like-minded groups. Join groups that think like you do. Be willing to help people through pain and denial when they're going through tough times. Help people identify alternative approaches through creativity and innovation. Help people to plan their experiments. Be an active coach to help people as you coach them. And then always be interpreting results and data so you can encourage people to improve. Reward and reinforce success, and be relentless with reinforcement. Behave consistently all the time. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And that concludes the case study called The Wizard of Oz. Thank you very much for spending the time with me today for The Wizard of Oz.